Thank you for joining me. This will be a completely spoiler-free review of the 2025 video game, The Mr. Rabbit Magic Show. The game is rated M for mature, so will this video be? And yeah, another of theirs that I absolutely love. That makes all of them. It's so weird to think that, yeah, um, this game is celebrating 10 years of them making games, and I played through all of them in I don't know, 2 years. And there was a substantial break between me playing the first and the second in the order that I played them in. But yeah, next time I play a game that's in a series, it will be a different series, and I'll get the next. I realize let's see, I forget. I think it's months from now that the next one of these comes out. I'll get it when it's on sale and play it at some point. Now, this game is free, and I think that is important to keep in mind as we talk about what exactly it is. Yeah, I will admit, the moment I found out, okay, it's free, and it's basically, there to just mark the occasion. I thought that maybe it was basically just going to be, slightly interactive, but mostly just, yeah, you know, um, patting themselves on the back or something. And it is definitely the case that it is less complex than a lot of, like, I guess you could say the main one, certainly, especially by this point in the, you know, yeah, um, of all of them, this might be the least complex. But then there are, it's not the first time that they've made a game that isn't super challenging. I think a case could probably be made that in some ways, some of the puzzles might be at least slightly more challenging than The Past Within. And yeah, basically, I think, was it maybe since the, it was either Rusty Lake Paradise or maybe some of the Cube Escape titles that came after that. Ever since then, they haven't been trying to make it more challenging than those, yeah, the most, the last of the ones with Rusty Lake in the title and Cube Escape in the title. And that's understandable because, like, it's difficult to go bigger. It's difficult to get much more, like, challenging of just puzzles. Those are some of the most challenging puzzles in any game I've ever played. Been playing for 30 years, just about. Yeah, I guess slightly more than that. Huh. Wow. Um, so yeah, ever since then they tried to experiment, come up with things that are very different, and yeah, I've been pretty fond of them doing that. As per usual, you can make this the first Rusty Lake thing you ever play. I mean, there's a couple of things where you won't get quite the same impact as if you've played at least some of the others, and it definitely is meant to, yeah, make you. Okay, I'll say one more time, just because it goes well here. It has some references that are very much like, yeah, meant to make you nostalgic for, some of those other ones. And I guess that more or less covers the so basically, but yeah, you're not gonna, it's not gonna spoil them. I'm very impressed by, 10 years worth of games, and not a single one of them just outright spoils the others. And it's almost, for some of them, it's almost interesting to see, if someone were to play some of these completely out of order, how would they respond to certain things the first time they see them versus later? Because, like, yeah, okay, I guess I can't go fully into detail without spoiling. But yeah, there's some things here in this franchise that just hit different depending on how much you know the first time you see a certain thing. Basically, oh right, and yeah, some of this video is going to build on what I've said in other videos on Rusty Lake franchise games, and the playlist to all my videos on these games will be in the description box. But yeah, one of the big things here is, right, and also, this is not the first time they've made a free game. One of the big things is that this does not particularly have, it's not a spoiler to say at the start you don't have, and I guess I don't want to say if you ever get it, but I'll just say certainly it's not right away that you get the inventory that we're used to from these, that has been there from the very start of these, which means that we are, essentially, they show how many different puzzles they can make and make interesting using only, only letting the player click and drag. Weird flex, but okay. Legitimately, it is kind of impressive. And the basic, you are playing through the titular Mr. Rabbit Magic Show. Had the title right in front of me, still botched it. I'm a little proud of myself for that. Basically, Mr. Rabbit is standing on stage, and you go through his various acts, and one act will, a running thing is you'll probably be able to see Mr. Rabbit. You may need him to take off his hat and wave his wand, and there's going to be some, riff on, it is like we all know, if nothing else, by cultural osmosis. Yeah, he's, let's see, I think the term is close-up magic. Yeah, he makes things appear and disappear. There's balloons, playing cards, furry friends. That's basically, and yeah, like this, that is an interesting limitation to set yourself. Like, nobody was forcing them to make it like this. You could have had a version of this that did have an inventory, and I don't know, it really worked. I at first wasn't entirely sure how I was going to feel about it, but I think part of it is just the charm of it, just the, yeah, it again, that's the thing. Part of, so a celebration, like, it's the developer's 10 years birthday, the developer as a a group. They've been making these games for 10 years. And yeah, what's part of like sometimes you have close-up magic at a celebration, and I already mentioned there's like balloons and yeah. I thought they did a really, really solid job of making the puzzles varied. Um, that was another thing. At the very start, I thought, oh, this is not going to be, you know, there's not going to be that much in the way of puzzles. And I already mentioned that they don't get quite as difficult. There was still, like, there was a, at the very start, it seemed like, oh, all you have to do is, like, just extremely obvious thing. But then, a lot of the Rusty Lake games do start out not super difficult right away and then build. I really love this subversive twist in it that I'm not going to give away. And I guess that does... they do still sometimes have the thing where you kind of just have to, you know, like there was at least one time where I just clicked on things and I wasn't entirely sure if it was part of a puzzle, because there was like something was responding to me clicking on it, and sometimes you kind of just you don't know exactly what to do. You kind of just have to, you know, try something without knowing if it works, which I don't know. I'm glad that it's no longer so common in their games as it was at the start, very very early on at least. Yeah, I think they've really managed to get that particular habit very much under control, which I appreciate, because I do think these work better when there are when they do hints towards the solution, and you just have to get on their wavelength. And yeah, this does not try to set a new standard for the most fucked up thing that happens in one of these, maybe even that you do yourself, perhaps even to an on-screen character or something. But it does feature at least one thing. And as usual, we mentioned earlier videos, it works well that they take this visual style that is, art style that is not that like you take a glance at it and you think, oh, that's not actually very what's the word, it's not that like visually stimulating. It's not, some of the time the colors are kind of, toned down, and the characters a lot of the time look kind of sad, and just as if sadness is kind of just their main, that's what they tend to be, sad kind of thing, and yeah, so let's see, there's the sadness and the, not gladness, but drabness, kind of, just it feels like a drawing someone did of, somewhat real life kind of thing, and it's not that um, by itself you don't look at it and think, fun. And then they have these, little fucked up things that play different, that hit harder in a way, because you were, you weren't really expecting that kind of thing, and to use that with also this thing of like a magic show. Yeah. um for at least one of the acts that you play through, they do utilize this thing of, we've all heard of, sometimes magic acts uh go wrong, and I think that might just about cover. Yeah, I think maybe yeah, I'm not sure I have much more to say about it. Hmm. Yeah. Let's see. The sound design is, as usual, on point, and I don't know. There's some kind of, there's a little bit of a satisfaction to, when you complete an act, you hear applause. Oh, they're clapping for me, which is, of course, in part, yeah, like celebration. It's- yeah, throughout, there's these various little things of like, yeah, celebrating. Um, I feel like there's something I'm missing, but I can't quite place. Let's see. Hmm. I don't know. Maybe that is everything that is. Yeah. I mean, if you are looking to play some of these, I wouldn't necessarily make this the place to start unless you want something that, like, if hypothetically, if inventory is not that big of, if it's either not what you want or just not a priority, then this does work as a place to start. But other than that, yeah, I mean, overall, I'd probably say to play them pretty much in the order that they came out, which, funnily enough, is not the order that they appear on. If you look on Steam, it'll say what year and even, month and day the different ones came out. The Cube Escape collection is actually, it has many of the firsts, and then, once you've played a bunch of them, then they start making Rusty Lake games and such, and I would probably say that's the best place to start. It feels weird to say, but I'm kind of gonna miss these until the next one. Um, yeah, playing so many of these. What is it, like 10, 9 or 10? Where I play them every several weeks in a row. As yeah, um, but it is, this was a really good place for me to, completely randomly ended up doing this so close to, yeah, as the last in the that I'm, yeah. I I guess I don't even really have to say there's not that much of like character interaction in this compared to, for example, Paradise and the, yeah, it has fairly little in this, in a form of scene changes, level design, that sort of thing. You know, mostly you are looking at the stage. Mr. Rabbit is on there, and you have to help him finish an act of some kind. And yeah, I think that might be about... But yeah, this does technically count as a horror game. So, you know, even though last week's was not a horror game, yesterday I did a horror movie. So last week I did 2 movies. Since, you know, only one of them... Yeah, the first one was Tron Ares, not really a horror movie. Trying to do horror reviews this month. And also, you know, you have me doing the Walking Dead vlogs. You know, a lot of the videos I do this month are horror. Not that you know, I can't exactly take credit for it. Just happened to end up that Walking Dead was this month, and it's not as though I only do it once a year. That would mean it would take forever for me to do at the rate I'm doing it. I guess it's still kind of gonna. But I'm loving it, so no complaints there. Yeah, I think that pretty much just leaves the right. I did appreciate the way that they managed to still fit in. You know, there was a thing or two that I wasn't entirely sure if they were gonna do in this one, but they found a way. And you might know when you get there, but I don't want to spoil it. Yeah, I think that does get us all the way to the what's the word? Yes, I rate this 8 magic acts that do get very fucked up out of 10.